Welcome to the Fast and the Repeatable, the Site Audit Reports edition. My name is James Glasgow. I'm a contractor for Homeland Security, working on the Web Content Management as a Service platform. On the platform, we have 20 plus websites for the different components within Homeland Security, both test integration, staging, and production environments. A site audit report provides the site administrators, system owners, and stakeholders with insight into the site configuration. The report tells which site it is for. In this case, it is for DHS internal site. Shows the date and the time of the report. And each report will contain one or more sections. Sections can have scores depending on the logic of the checks in that section. Here's a list of our available sections. We have caching, modules and extensions, content, database, security settings, status report, users, views, and database logs. There might be additional sections. These are the ones that I care about the most. For caching, in this section, you can see the site's cache settings, as well as suggestions on how to improve the site performance. Notice we look on here, we have we can see if it's anonymous caching is enabled, see what the minimum cache lifetime is set. In this case, it's none. We might consider changing that. We can see expiration of cached pages is not set. So we should probably consider setting that on the site. Cached pages are compressed, which is good, and the CSS and JavaScript aggregation is turned on. So at a glance, we can see where we have issues in this one section. For modules and extensions, an extension section provides insight into the number of modules installed on the site, any modules that should not be enabled. For instance, this site has the context UI and views UI modules enabled, which are generally advisable to turn off these user interface modules in production. The modules and extensions section also gives us insight into what modules need to be updated, as well as any security updates that may be required for the site. The content section can tell us how many nodes are on the site. If we look at this example, there's a total of 9 nodes. You can tell it's a huge site. We can see a breakout of how many nodes per content type. We actually have 2 content types that are unused, so we could probably remove them. It wouldn't be a bad idea, but like I said, it's not a huge site. We can see content with duplicate titles. No nodes on the site with duplicate titles exist. The database section allows you to see the approximate size of the database, including configurations, and which tables have a high number of rows. Notice looking at this, I saw the search index table. It doesn't have a huge number of rows, it's more than 1,000, but since search is not enabled on the site, we probably don't need the search module enabled in indexing, especially with only 9 pages. So I think I'll turn that off next week. The security section gives us insight into any potential security issues. So right here we can check for potentially malicious entries in the menu router, check some security kit settings to make sure the module is enabled, and we have strict transport security enabled and the content security policy enabled. The status section shows us Drupal's standard status report for the site. And the user section shows information about the site users. We can see there's a total of 8 users, 2 of them are blocked. We can see the information for the username and password for user ID number 1 and whether or not user ID number 1 is blocked. The view section shows the status, number of enabled views, as well as caching settings for the views. I don't even think that we have any views enabled on the site, so this module could probably be disabled. We can also get information regarding the site logs, like how many log entries there are, if there are any page not found errors, or if there are any PHP messages. How many? I see 2.79% of all the messages in the logs are PHP errors, notices, and warnings. So how does the Site Audit Reports work? In Drupal 7, the Site Audit is a Drush plugin. It can be added to the user's Drush directory to be used on any of the sites in the system. Has a list of all the different reports that you can get, or sections of the report, I guess. Or you can just do AA or Audit All, which will give you one report with all the different sections that are available. When we're performing checks, it can access the database to get the information it requires. And it is extensible. You can add your own custom sections or checks to your custom modules, or contributed modules can add its own checks. For instance, these 3 checks that you see here under the security section, whether or not security kit's enabled, the HTTP strict transport security and content security policy, those are all custom checks that I added to a custom module that we put on all the sites. Those checks could also just as easily been added to the security kit module to make it so anyone with Site Audit with that module installed will have those checks. So in Drupal 8, Site Audit is a Drupal module, not a Drush plugin. It's available to all those with the administer site configuration permissions, and you need to navigate to the site to be able to see the report. In Drupal 8, the Site Audit module also provides some Drush 9 integration, where you can choose which report that you want and get the report as standard console output. So we can output to the console. We can also output in JSON format, which makes it easy if you have a script that's running to check to see, on the reports to see where there may be issues. You can easily parse that JSON in your script and pull that information out and maybe trigger an email to be sent if there's an issue. We have an HTML format output. Note that the HTML being returned is not a proper web page. There's no wrapping HTML element, there's no head element, no styles or scripts. This is perfect for embedding in another web page. In Drupal 8, this is how the Site Audit Report page is being generated. A request is made for this HTML, and it just puts that in the standard Drupal page for your theme, or in your theme. You also have the option to get HTML with Bootstrap 3 styles embedded. This outputs the complete HTML for a page, including the styles, which can then be dumped into an HTML file for use elsewhere. For instance, if you look on the right-hand side here, we have an automated script that will generate a Site Audit report on a weekly basis and upload the file to a Confluence page. We do this for both staging and production sites. For the different sites that are on our platform, each site we have a Confluence space with a page for their Site Audit reports. People can subscribe to that page, so anytime a new report is added, they automatically get an email notification. So when this happens at something like 3 o'clock Sunday morning, they can get their notifications, see that there's a report, they can go look at it and see what might have changed since last week. What configuration change was made? You never know. We had one time when, last April I think it was, I got an email from someone saying, hey, the security people want to know how many users we had on January 1st. And I'm saying, well, it's 3 months ago. But I have a Site Audit report. I can go look at January's and see how many we had. It makes it nice to be able to look to see our history, see where we are now, see where we've changed, see where we might need to improve. The benefits that we've seen with Site Audit Reports is we can provide structural recommendations and best practices for site developers, administrators, and stakeholders. We have an end result that is fast and repeatable, allowing us to detect common problems. And the reports can be generated in different formats. And because of these, we have seen an annual savings of over $20,000. So, any questions?
Just for Drupal 8, clearly it's a module.
Yes.
Can you give a high level for implementing this in Drupal 7? I know you said it's a Drush plugin.
Yes. So what you do, let's see if I can pull up an example here. If I can find my mouse. Okay, so here's the site. Site audit should be here if we're looking. Get into my Docker container. Let's see. Okay, so in your own users.drush directory, or in a specific commands directory, I have a bash alias that says, hey, use this doxel/drush commands directory on any drush command I run. And so you can see here I have a couple drush plugins here. Site Audit is one of them. So you go to drupal.org/project/site audit, download the Drupal 7, the latest Drupal 7 version, and just untar it right here in that your drush commands directory, and it's there. If I can type right, if you just type drush, you should be able to see the site audits options there. Yeah. Let's see, AC. Well, there's somewhere. There's so many commands, it's hard to find them. Of course, I didn't tell it where to use the drush commands directory. That's my problem.
Yeah, right.
There. Okay, yeah, I can grab it. The other problem was I wasn't using my alias. I was in the Docker container instead of in my normal terminal. So you can see the list of commands here, and you can then run them. Just tell them which format you want to output, and it'll output it. Sometimes, depending on which check you're running, how big your database is. I've had some of these when you do the all reports where it actually takes 5 or 10 minutes because it has to go through every single table in the database, and if you have 50,000 nodes, it takes a while. So, any other questions? Yeah.
Do you make this part of like your development or build process? Or is it just like a weekly, daily sort of task?
It's right now it's running on a cron job that runs every Sunday morning, just so we can have a weekly report of what's going on. We've had some of the sites, they'll contact me midweek, say, hey, can we get an updated site audit report for the week? Maybe they've changed something and they want to see what the site audit report says. Right now, the only thing that we're doing that in the development process is before code gets merged to be deployed, we do check to make sure that there are no security updates for modules. That is an automated process before it can be merged into the branch that goes to production. We make sure have that checked, and then before we allow it, the developers have to give us justification say, "No, this is why they can't update it, and this is how it's mitigated," or they need to fix it. So, yes?
So, you're outputting the reports just to the local server for browsing. Have you looked at all about, like, say for an agency that might manage 20, 30, 40 sites, like being able to sort of collect all those reports in one place?
Yeah.
To be able to check, like, all of our sites, see if there's a security update for X module or whatever.
To be able to see all in one place, it is possible. What you'd need to do is you need to run the site audit report with probably a JSON output for all the sites. Basically, run it for each site individually. Have a script that then goes and parses through there to see if there's any issues that needs to be brought to your attention.
So James, it's in Confluence, so I can go to Confluence and
Yes.
see it for my site.
So Jonathan here works for one of our sites on the platform. So yeah, you can just go to Confluence under the I guess the section's called File Lists, and there's one for Site Audit Reports. So, are there any other questions? Okay. Nice short session, so you can go and mingle.